All right, it's another of the Homeric Rhapsody things. We're currently in what is known in the modern era as Book 8 of the Iliad, and just as a reminder, I don't really remember what happens in Book 8 that much, so a lot of this is going to be just, making stuff up, and that's kind of the whole reason I'm doing this, is to get better at that aspect. So I don't expect this to be very good, because I'm gonna have to make up a lot of stuff at once. But we'll give it a shot. Here we go. Sing, O Muse, of that day in which the Trojans won out against the Achaeans and pushed them all the way back to their black, well-benched ships on the shore, and they all stood outside of their encampments, sleeping just a stone's throw away from that camp of the Achaeans. Both armies had assembled on the shore, the Achaeans and the Trojans standing before one another, the captains of each offering up their words of encouragement and of advice and strategy to each other. And they clashed, both coming at each other like a great whirlwind clashing upon the rocks on a mountain valley. The Trojans with their mighty shouts, and the Achaeans in their disciplined silence. First it was that son of Laertes, Odysseus, who cast his spear, and it did not fly in vain, guided by the power of Athena, in secret, not visible by Zeus. It landed in the chest of a Trojan charioteer, Chromius, who had pulled that chariot of Hector all throughout the conflict so far. And so did he fly out of that chariot onto the ground, and furious Ares stopped the quivering of that spear as it sat there fixed into the ground. Hector was devastated at the loss of his charioteer, but had to pull forward one more of the Trojans who was standing through the lines. Ecamon he took forth, who was servant to his father and served in Priam's court, pouring drinks and offering various tasks to the Trojan lords. So had he now been plucked out of the ranks and given the honor of piloting Hector's chariot. And thus did Hector rage throughout the ranks, cutting down swaths of Achaeans as he flew through as if on wings. His chariot barely touched the earth, which had been so recently cleared of corpses. Thus were the men and horses slain on that day, as Hector with his bronze blade cut forth through all the ranks of the Achaeans, stepping forth from that chariot, fighting each in hand-to-hand combat. Alastor had fallen, and Orestes, and Alcon, and Bremusa, and Megas. All of these and many more had fallen to Hector's spear, and that sun had not even reached the time when a woodman would stop for his midday meal. Such was the slaughter caused by that son of Priam. Through the ranks came all the Achaeans of note, who were wroth for the many lives that had been taken, and tried to bolster that area which had been so weakened by Hector's charge. But none of them, not Idomeneus, not Ajax the giant, or Diomedes, or any of those great Achaean captains, could stop that furious might of that shining-helmed son of Priam. For so on Mount Ida had the great Lord of the dark clouds, Zeus, son of Cronos, taken out his golden scales, and he had one measure for the Achaeans and another measure for the Trojans. And he loosed them, and down sank the day of doom for the Achaeans, and up went that for the Trojans, bringing them glory. And so every spear cast by a Trojan, even if it be by a weakling who was of no note in the war until now, would find its mark, and all those of the Achaeans would fall by the wayside. Such was that glory given by Zeus, son of crooked-minded Cronos. And the Achaeans fell back, step by step, toward those beached ships by which they had come to the land of Troy so many years before. Okay, a strange one. I obviously got super tongue-tied a couple of times because I couldn't stop thinking about that. I'm pretty sure I missed a big section of the story. I mentioned a few times that I couldn't remember what happens in book 8. And I think, I still can't remember really, but I want to say that in book 8, that's when they do the corpse removal thing where they I can't remember if it is or not, but I want to say that the armies go out to take the corpses away, and that's the part when Nestor tells them to build the barricade, or the ramparts that protects the Greek camp. And I still can't remember, but I was trying to think in the middle of telling the story, well, okay, if that doesn't happen now, then when is it's supposed to happen? And at some point it must be occurring, because it has to happen at least before book, I guess 12, because that's when the everybody starts scaling the walls of the ramparts and stuff. I'm guessing it happens in book 8, but I can't think of why it would happen here, because it wouldn't be at the beginning of the day that they would clear all the corpses away and build the ramparts. I don't know. Anyway, as you can see, I'm very hazy on what happens in this particular section of the Iliad, and a bunch of stuff has to. The end of the story here is a bunch of stuff has to happen, and it doesn't really matter what happens in what we know as the Iliad, because the whole point of me doing all this is to try and get a sense for, through telling the story, not through reading the story, to get a sense of what Homer might have really been trying to say, because all the versions that came down to us, that's not what Homer said. That's just what some scribe wrote down hundreds of years after Homer said it, and then for thousands of years that other people had been revising and changing it for whatever reason they wanted to, there was no concept of like, you know, copyrights or citation or anything like that at the time. So any ancient text, it's like a complete, you know, it's great that they exist, but it's not what that author really said. And so by trying to tell a story that is, you know, coming off the top of my head, I'm trying to get more of a sense of what it doesn't, it's not that I'm trying to get what Homer said, but rather to understand the context under which he was telling the story, which I feel I'm able to get a sense of better than just by reading the Iliad, which I still do anyway all the time. But we have a set of plot points that need to happen, and we have a big empty space. And so the job here is to just get all of those plot points to occur within the empty space. And that's what I'll try to do. So let's keep going with it.